It's early morning. The sky is still gray, caught between night and dawn. A woman walks alone through a garden, her sandals damp with dew, her arms full of spices she prepared in the dark hours because she couldn't sleep, couldn't stop crying, couldn't stay away. She's going to a tomb, not to visit a friend, not to pay respects at a distance. She's going to a place of death, alone, before sunrise, in a world where women didn't walk alone in the dark. She has nothing to gain from this trip. The man she's grieving is already dead. There's no reward waiting for her at that tomb, or so she thinks. But this woman is about to become the first human being in history to see something no one has ever seen before. And her name is about to be spoken for the next 2,000 years. Her name is Mary, Mary of Magdala, and her story is one of the most misunderstood, most maligned, and most important stories in the entire Bible. Let's tell it properly. Before we go any further, let's clear something up, because Mary Magdalene has probably been more misrepresented than almost anyone else in the Bible. For centuries, she was painted, sometimes literally in famous artworks, as a former prostitute, a fallen woman who found redemption. It's a dramatic story. It's also not what the Bible actually says. Nowhere in Scripture is Mary Magdalene identified as a prostitute. That idea came from a sermon by Pope Gregory the Great in the year 591, over 5 centuries after Jesus lived, when he merged her identity with 2 other women mentioned in the Gospels. An unnamed sinful woman who anoints Jesus' feet, and Mary of Bethany, the sister of Lazarus and Martha. 3 separate women quietly folded into one. The Catholic Church officially corrected this mistake in 1969. But the myth had already run for over 1,000 years, and myths, once they take root, are hard to pull out. So who was she, really? Her name tells us where she was from. Magdala, a fishing town on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. It was a real working town, nets, boats, salted fish, the smell of the lake in the morning. This wasn't a woman from a wealthy family or a religious dynasty. She was most likely an ordinary woman from an ordinary town. What made her extraordinary was what happened to her, and how she responded to it. The Gospel of Luke tells us that Jesus healed Mary by casting out 7 demons from her. We don't know exactly what that means in modern terms. It might have been a severe illness. It might have been something we'd now call epilepsy, or deep mental anguish, or a suffering the ancient world had no better language for than demons. What we do know is this: whatever it was bad. 7 is a number the Bible uses to mean completeness, not 7 separate problems, but total, overwhelming affliction. She was, in some deep way, not free, not herself, trapped, and then she wasn't. Jesus healed her, completely, and Mary Magdalene did something that tells you everything about who she was. She didn't just say thank you and go back to her old life. She got up and she followed him. Here's something remarkable that often gets lost. Mary Magdalene wasn't a background character. Luke's Gospel names her specifically as one of a group of women who traveled with Jesus and the 12 disciples, and who helped support the entire ministry out of their own means. Not just watching from a distance, funding the mission, walking the roads, showing up. In 1st century Judea, this was not a small thing. Women traveling openly with a rabbi, contributing their own money, being named alongside the male disciples, this broke social convention. It tells us Mary wasn't a quiet footnote. She was part of the inner circle, trusted enough, present enough, that the Gospel writers remembered her name specifically, out of the dozens of people who must have come and gone. And she stayed. That's the pattern of her whole story. She stayed when almost everyone else left. Fast forward to the darkest days anyone in this story would ever live through. Jesus has been arrested, tried, condemned. And now he's being led out to be executed by crucifixion, one of the most brutal forms of execution the Roman Empire had perfected. Where are his closest followers? Scattered. Peter, the disciple who swore he'd never abandon Jesus, has denied even knowing him 3 times out of fear. Most of the 12 have vanished into the crowd, into hiding, into self-preservation. It's completely understandable. Being associated with a condemned man in that moment could get you killed too. But the Gospels tell us that a group of women didn't run. Matthew, Mark, and John all specifically place Mary Magdalene at the foot of the cross. She watched. She didn't look away and she didn't leave. Try to sit with what that actually means for a second. This is a public execution, designed by Rome to be as humiliating and as terrifying as possible, specifically so that people would stay away, would distance themselves, would learn the lesson. Don't associate with people who challenge power. And Mary Magdalene stood there anyway, in full view of soldiers and a hostile crowd, and watched the man who healed her die. She wasn't there because it was safe. She was there because she loved him, and because leaving wasn't in her. When it was over, the Gospels tell us Mary Magdalene watched where Jesus' body was laid. A tomb cut into rock, sealed with a heavy stone, in a garden near the site of the crucifixion. She noted the location carefully, because she wasn't done yet. This brings us back to where we started that gray, quiet morning. The Sabbath had passed. As soon as it was permitted, Mary Magdalene gathered burial spices, the customary way of honoring the dead in that culture, and set out, before the sun was fully up, to finish the proper burial rites that hadn't been completed before the Sabbath began. Some gospel accounts describe her going with other women. John's gospel focuses tightly on her alone. Either way, she is the woman the story keeps its eye on. She expected a sealed tomb and a body to anoint. What she found instead stopped her cold. The massive stone that had sealed the entrance was rolled away. The tomb was open. Put yourself in her sandals for a moment. Her first thought isn't resurrection. Her first thought, the only reasonable thought, is that someone has taken the body. According to John's gospel, she runs, to find Peter and another disciple, and she tells them, breathless, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." The disciples run back with her, see the empty tomb and the folded burial cloths for themselves, and then, and this detail matters, they go back home. They don't know what to make of it, so they leave. Mary doesn't leave. She stays at the tomb, alone now, and she weeps. And then, according to John's account, she bends down and looks into the tomb, and sees two figures in white sitting where Jesus' body had been. They ask her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She answers through her grief, "They have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him." Then she turns around. There's someone standing behind her. Through her tears, in the low morning light, she doesn't recognize him. She assumes he's the gardener, a reasonable assumption since they're standing in a garden. He asks her the same question. "Woman, why are you weeping? Who is it you are looking for?" Still thinking he might know something, still searching, she asks him directly, "If you've moved the body, just tell me where, and I'll go and get him myself." And then he says one word, her name, Mary. And in that single word, her own name, spoken in a voice she knew, everything changes. She turns and recognizes him instantly. It's Jesus, alive. She cries out one word in return, Rabboni, meaning teacher. And this is the moment, right here. A woman from a fishing town, healed of a devastating affliction, who funded a ministry, who stood at a cross when the men had fled, who came back to a tomb before dawn. This woman becomes the very first person in human history to see the risen Jesus, and to hear him speak. Not Peter, not John, not any of the 12. Mary Magdalene. And Jesus doesn't just appear to her, he gives her a job. He tells her to go to the disciples and tell them what she has seen, that he is risen. And she does exactly that. She runs, again, she runs, to the disciples. And she says the words that would eventually be preached in every corner of the world. "I have seen the Lord." This is why, for centuries, Christian tradition has given Mary Magdalene an extraordinary title, the Apostle to the Apostles. An apostle, in the original sense, simply means someone who is sent to deliver a message. And the very first person entrusted with the single most important message in the Christian faith, that death did not have the final word, was a woman who, at one point, could barely hold herself together. So why does this story matter beyond the history? First, presence outlasts fear. Nearly everyone else in Jesus' inner circle disappeared when things got dangerous. That's human. But Mary Magdalene's whole story is defined by refusing to disappear. At the cross, at the tomb, in the garden. Second, healing doesn't erase you, it reveals you. Mary isn't remembered for her affliction. She's remembered for everything she did after she was healed. Her past struggle didn't disqualify her from being trusted with the most important news in the story. If anything, her transformation is exactly why she's positioned there. Third, being overlooked doesn't mean being unseen. For most of history, and fourth, grief and faith aren't opposites. Mary weeps at the tomb even while angels are speaking to her. She's still crying when Jesus is standing right in front of her. Her faith doesn't erase her grief, and her grief doesn't cancel her faith. She holds both at once. That's real. That's human. And it's honest in a way that a lot of religious storytelling isn't brave enough to be. Strip away the myths, the mistaken identities, the centuries of assumption, and what's left is this. A woman from a small fishing town, healed from something that had a grip on her whole life, who chose, again and again, not to walk away. Not from a healer who changed her. Not from a cross that terrified everyone else. Not from a tomb that made no sense. And not from a garden where grief turned. What she had was loyalty that didn't quit, and the courage to keep showing up when showing up was the hardest, least rewarded thing she could do. And because of that, her name is still spoken today, not as a footnote, but as the first person entrusted with the news that would define a faith followed by billions of people. Not because of a myth someone invented about her past, but because of who she actually was, Mary of Magdala, the woman who stayed, the woman who ran back with the news, the first witness. If the story moved you, let us know in the comments, and subscribe for more stories from the Bible told the way they actually happened.